I think what Building Learning Power does is recognises an important but neglected aspect of what's always gone on in lessons. And that is, what learning habits, what learning attitudes are we inviting and cultivating by the way we're doing simultaneous equations or the colours of the rainbow or the Tudors or whatever it may be. Now, if you stand back and look at education from that point of view, sadly, too much, there is still the inviting and the stretching of a set of habits of mind called remembering, reasoning and regurgitating, of simply using the learning muscles that will get you through a conventional examination. Whereas what Building Learning Power is realising is that we have a choice in terms of the way we design a science lesson, a history lesson, a religious education lesson, to stretch different kinds of muscles.
Do you think then that Building Learning Power is exposing flaws in the way we teach in this country at the moment?
I think what Building Learning Power is doing is reminding us of a hidden aspect of teaching that has been there forever and has always been there. And that's the aspect of what habits or attitudes of mind are you inviting students to make use of in your classroom. So it's not, as well as being interested in the content, we're now much more interested in what learning muscles are being exercised and stretched as you do your sums or your essay or your science experiment. In traditional education, we now realise, as we look back at it, the learning muscles that got invited and exercised day after day tended to be passivity, note-taking, accurate retention and regurgitation on demand. Now, those aren't useless skills, but I don't think they would be at the top of anybody's list of life skills for the 21st century. Most people would put curiosity, questioning, initiative, resourcefulness, responsibility, imagination up the top of their list. And what Building Learning Power is doing is saying we can, if we want, shift from that rather antiquated set of learning exercises to a different set which have much greater value, much greater validity for young people out in the big wide world. So there is an implied critique, if you like, within Building Learning Power of not of the content or not of the examinations, but of the kinds of learning exercise which young people are getting in lessons. And what we have discovered is without a great deal of kerfuffle, without a revolution, we can shift the nature of the learning exercise that young people are getting from the old-fashioned set of learning muscles to a newer and more valuable set.
So, Professor, how does Building Learning Power fit in with the many other initiatives that schools are dealing with at the moment?
There are lots of other initiatives in schools at the moment which are trying to address similar kind of territory. There is the new secondary curriculum which involves personal learning and thinking skills, social and emotional aspects of learning, assessment for learning, a whole range of different approaches. Where schools are finding that Building Learning Power is useful is that it provides an umbrella, it provides an approach to the emotional and the reflective and the cognitive and the social sides of learning, which provides a very comfortable tent which includes and in a way makes greater sense of all these other initiatives. So schools are finding that it's not, as it were, another initiative on its own, but it's a way of making sense and giving coherence to the other initiatives which are around.
But is Building Learning Power suitable for all students or perhaps just a niche group?
Our experience is, and I'm delighted to have discovered this, that Building Learning Power seems to work well with a wide range, in fact, as far as I can see, the whole range of ages and abilities and backgrounds in education. Last week, I was in a school for children with special educational needs. They were finding that this approach was enormously useful as an aspect of their work with children who are really starting often from a very low base of confidence and ability in terms of their learning. On the other hand, a month ago I was in a sixth form college with very bright 16, 17-year-olds, many of whom have learnt how to walk the narrow plank of the examination process, but a lot of them have not developed the kind of broad, robust, real-life resilience and resourcefulness which they're going to need. And so even at that level, teachers and lecturers in further education and in sixth form colleges are finding that this approach is very useful in terms of the students that they're working with. So we have yet to discover an age group or an ability group or an ethnic group or a geographical group that building learning power doesn't work with. We may discover one, but we haven't found it yet.
Just finally, is this then about both teachers and students and schools as a whole, just picking up new and better habits?
A lot of people these days talk in this territory about the training of skills, the developing of skills, mental skills, learning skills, thinking skills. Building learning power is a little bit different from that because it talks about developing habits or dispositions of mind. And there is a very simple reason for that. A skill is something that you can do. A disposition or a habit is something that you do. If I ask you, can you play the piano? You might say yes. If I ask you, do you play the piano? You might say no. One is the skill, the other is the disposition. If we want to help young people become more powerful and confident real-life learners, it's not sufficient to give them the skill if that skill doesn't become habitual, if it remains, as it were, inert, if it's not, as it were, at the forefront of young people's minds. And we know there's a lot of research evidence which shows that we can train young people up in thinking skills or social and emotional skills, but if those skills have not become habitual, as soon as you walk away from the training context, they don't come to mind. And therefore we haven't done the job. We haven't done the job of really giving these kids a portable, empowering platform to help them live in a complicated world. And that's why we talk about developing habits rather than merely training skills.